They said queens do not tremble, but on the morning of May 2nd, 1536, beneath the high windows of Greenwich Palace, Anne Boleyn's hands would not stop shaking. The scent of lilac hung in the corridors, sweet, almost mocking, as her ladies whispered behind closed doors. In the kingdom she had once ruled beside a godlike husband. Silence had become a weapon sharper than any blade. The queen who once dazzled Europe now felt invisible in her own court. The courtiers' laughter stopped when she entered. Even the servants avoided her gaze. She sensed the shift before the storm, the way King Henry's smile had turned into silence, and silence into distance. Every gesture was now a verdict, every glance a quiet betrayal. They came for her when the bells of St. Mary's tolled noon. A dozen men in crimson and black, the king's council, bearing no warmth in their eyes. Accusations whispered for weeks, now spoken aloud. Treason, adultery, conspiracy against the crown. Her breath caught like a trapped bird. Anne did not cry. She only laughed, a hollow, broken sound that startled even her captors. "If it be treason," she said, "then I am guilty of being loved." The echo of those words haunted the chamber long after she was taken away. As the barge carried her down the Thames toward the Tower of London, the sky darkened like an omen. The same waters that had once reflected her coronation now bore her in chains. The people on the riverbanks watched in silence. No cheers, no hatred, only pity. Within the tower's cold embrace, she was no longer a queen, only the Lady Anne. Her rooms were stark, stripped of color and comfort, yet she prayed, sometimes aloud, as though heaven might still be listening. "God knows my innocence," she whispered, but even the walls seemed to doubt her. Days passed in echoes. Each morning she woke expecting pardon. Each night she slept, knowing none would come. The tower ravens cried louder now, circling her window like black omens. The ladies attending her, chosen not for loyalty but control, watched her with veiled sorrow. She thought of her daughter, Elizabeth, barely 3 years old. Would the child remember her voice, her smile, or only the stain her name would leave upon the throne? The cruelty of it struck like winter. Queens are supposed to leave crowns behind, not ghosts. At night, she dreamed of green fields and summer winds, the world before power. Before the crown had turned her husband into a stranger. She woke to the sound of footsteps and the clinking of keys, and each time wondered if it was the end. In the silence that followed, she began to write. Letters to Henry, to her brother, to anyone who might listen. Each word bled like confession, half in ink, half in sorrow. But no reply ever came, only the sound of the rain on the tower stones. Anne's final hope began to fracture. She could no longer tell whether she awaited justice or mercy, or if both had long since vanished from this kingdom. The court outside her cell was already preparing for her absence. New alliances, new queens, new lies. And yet, in the quiet of her confinement, something divine flickered within her, a strange calm, as though she had already crossed into legend. Perhaps she knew then, the body of a queen could die, but her story would never rest. The clock struck midnight. The first day had ended, and the queen still breathed, but the whisper of death had found her name, and it would not let go. Morning seeped through the bars like a reluctant ghost. Anne had not slept. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of rust and candle smoke. She heard the church bells ring in the distance, each toll like a countdown. Outside, London woke to its own noise, indifferent to the queen who awaited judgment. When they summoned her to the great hall, she walked as if already dead. The walls loomed tall, hung with banners of the crown she once shared. There sat her judges, men who had once bowed before her. Among them, her uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, his face carved from stone. The charges read like a cruel theater: adultery with 5 men, incest with her brother, conspiracy to kill the king. Each word dripped with venom, designed not for truth, but for spectacle. Yet Anne stood tall, her voice steady, her heart shattering quietly beneath her ribs. She denied them all, not with anger, but with grace, each word a whisper against the roaring tide. "I have ever been faithful to His Majesty," she said, "save only in my heart, where I loved God more." But no faith could save her now. The verdict had been written long before the trial began. From the gallery above, Henry's spies recorded every tremor in her voice. Somewhere far away, The king dined in golden halls, his laughter muffled by music. He would not hear the woman who once changed his kingdom now beg for her soul. When the verdict came, guilty of high treason, Anne bowed her head only once. The hall exhaled. She asked for no mercy, only that the sentence be carried out with honor. Even her enemies paused. They saw not a traitor, but a queen stripped of her crown, yet not her dignity. Back in her cell, she wept for the first time, not for herself, but for the man she had loved beyond reason, the man who now turned her name into dust. She remembered the days of laughter, of courtly dances and secret glances. Power had made them gods, pride had made them enemies. As night fell again, she asked for a priest. They prayed together beneath the dim glow of a single candle. "Forgive them," she whispered, "for they know not what they destroy." Her faith, once her weapon, was now her only refuge. Outside the tower, London buzzed with rumors. Some claimed the queen had cursed the king's line. Others said she had confessed to witchcraft. Lies multiplied like smoke, thick, choking, unstoppable. Yet within her cell, Anne remained calm. She had learned that truth, once broken, cannot be repaired by mortal hands. On the 15th day, the executioner arrived from Calais, a swordsman known for his precision. Anne thanked him. "You will do your office well," she said, smiling faintly. Those who heard it could not decide whether it was courage or madness. That night, she dressed in white, not as a prisoner, but as a bride meeting her fate. She arranged her hair, folded her letters, and placed her rosary upon the table. The sound of the river outside lulled her into an uneasy peace. In the final hours before dawn, she prayed again, this time not for herself, but for England. "Let my death be the end of sorrow," she murmured. The words vanished into the night, carried by a wind that seemed to answer her. The 16th day dawned red. Somewhere beyond the walls, trumpets sounded, steady, cruel, ceremonial. The queen rose, straightened her gown, and smiled. For the first time in weeks, she looked free. Outside, the scaffold waited. The crowd gathered not to witness justice, but history. The queen's final act was about to begin, and the world would remember her not as a monster, but as a woman who dared to love too fiercely in an age that feared love itself. Dawn bled across the sky like a wound. The tower bells tolled once, twice, then fell silent. Anne Boleyn stepped into the courtyard wrapped in white linen, her head uncovered, her eyes bright as glass. Around her, the air shimmered with the hum of fear and finality. She smiled, softly, almost kindly, at the faces that once whispered against her. The wind tugged at her veil as she knelt upon the wooden boards. The silence was unbearable, heavy as prayer. Only the ravens dared to speak. She began to speak, her voice steady as water. "Good Christian people, I am come hither to die. I submit me to the will of the king, my lord." No bitterness touched her tone. Her words, stripped of crown and pride, rose like a hymn for the broken-hearted. Even the executioner bowed before her. He begged her forgiveness. She smiled again, that same haunting smile, and said, "I pray you dispatch me quickly." Grace had become her armor now. Fear had no hold left upon her. She knelt. Her lips moved in silent prayer. A sudden gust swept across the courtyard, lifting her hair, scattering petals from the garlands laid nearby. For one fragile heartbeat, time itself seemed to kneel beside her. The sword flashed, a single merciful arc of steel. The crowd gasped, and then the world was silent again. A queen had fallen, not by war or rebellion, but by the fragile cruelty of love turned cold. Her body was laid to rest within the tower's chapel, nameless among the stones. Yet her story refused to die. Whispers followed her through centuries. Some called her a sinner, others a saint, but all agreed she had changed England forever. Far beyond her grave, her daughter would rise, a queen in her own right, Elizabeth, the child of the condemned. Through her, Anne's spirit would reign once more, her name reborn in the fire of destiny. Centuries have passed, and yet the tower still holds her breath, the faint echo of silk upon stone, the whisper of a prayer half finished. They say that on certain mornings, when the sun strikes the scaffold square, her shadow appears once more. Her story is not a warning, it is a requiem, for every voice silenced, for every crown that cost a soul. History still whispers, if we dare to listen.